Everybody does that. I'd rather you ask, and it's no worries. Um, all right. So with that, I've used up a couple of minutes. We're still a little bit light on the participants. We had something like 150 people sign up, and a lot are here to join. I know these days a lot of people just want the recording. All right. With that, I think I'm going to get going because you've all been punctual, and I hate to penalize you for that. All right, a little bit about my friend Lucio. First of all, just me, if you haven't been to one of our webinars, Adam Asnes, founder, CEO of Lingoport. And as a company, we started just as an internationalization consulting company, but then we developed products to continually internationalize, and then all kinds of localization automation systems. So just go to lingoport.com and you can read about that. But in any case, I want to talk about Lucio. I'm not going to read this. You can all do that on your own. I'm going to just be a little more personal. We know, and when I say we, I mean the Lingoport team, because a lot of people have interacted with him. We know Lucio for quite a few years. He was a leading globalization architect at Intuit and had a lot of people working under him there. And the same at Workday, leading well, we'll call him a globalization architect because it's a lot more than localization. And he really is quite creative in what he develops. He is a original thinker. He really comes up with good ideas. He has very strong ideas of systems for good program, good workflow, but much more than workflow. It's like the nitty-gritty of how you should handle things and connect it. And it's actually pretty rare for a localization team to have somebody like Lucio available. So pretty special. Usually we as a company end up sort of in many accounts playing that role for the client. And so when you get together with somebody like Lucio, you can really exchange a lot. Some of our conversations with Lucio's have actually ended up in our products. So it's a two-way street that way. It's really cool. All right, so I've probably embarrassed Lucio enough here. I'll move on here. So I'm going to ask questions of Lucio. That's what this webinar is going to be, to tell us a little bit about the challenges he has met. So Lucio, let's just start with a description of the Workday globalization team's structure and role within the company.
Thank you, Adam. And thank you, Lingoport team, as well, for the opportunity to let me be here with you today and everyone. Thank you for your time to spend with that you're spending with us today, and I'm sure you will take some very good ideas, I hope, out of this conversation. And so, yeah, really grateful to be here, and thanks again for the opportunity. So thank you. So the first question is describe Workday's globalization team structure and role. One of the key strategic goals of Workday, as you probably know from the media, from the news, is to expand the horizons and really start moving their products and services across the globe. And that journey started a few years ago, and that's why globalization really became a key strategic goal for Workday at that point in time. And that's how the team was built, with that mindset of global is a key strategic goal for the business. And from that point on, and that's how the team was, and that's the reason why that globalization team was created. And so it remains up to this today, and that team remains a core a core component in the company to enable Workday to go global. And the way the team was structured, it was structured in a way that allows us to be flexible and to scale and be able to manage relationships at the same time. Usually, when you have a key strategic goal, and you're starting with this, you start building the team. And the team was built in three pillars. We had program managers, a group of program managers who will handle the relationships and manage and have constant communication with different stakeholders within the company, as well as with external partners as well. We had language services. They were always looking after having the right and proper quality in all the languages in our products, at Workday's products. And then you also have the engineering team sitting at the center of it all. And engineering was also playing different roles, serving the needs of the internal globalization team, as well as the needs of all the other teams, and not only developers, but also other areas of the business: marketing, legal, sales, community, all those different aspects that build up a business to be able to go and go global across different locales. And that's how I will describe it at this. It's the Workday globalization team at this point.
So I should make it clear, Lucio is no longer at Workday. He's starting a new venture soon, but he can't talk about that yet, or he'd have to kill us. But
no problem.
In any case, I will say that at an enterprise like Workday, it's not a single product you're taking care of. Even a single product has a large amount of teams working on different aspects of products. There's you might think of it more like thousands of teams and supporting that. So scale is really important. Quality is really important, and the ability to, kind of push a message across developers that are not just in one building. Obviously, nobody's in one building anymore, but
That's right.
really, you can't be looking over everybody's shoulders all the time. So that's definitely one of the challenges of a larger enterprise.
Yes. And
And
Adam, if I may add, thank you because I would like to say that one of the key aspects of creating a new team and any enterprise, the first thing that came to mind was Lingoport. Honestly, we reach out to Lingoport because you also want to create relationships with experts in the field. And we reach out to Lingoport and we describe our needs, our journey, and they were very, very happy to help us.
Right. And it's funny, like Lingoport started really, and we still do this like a few times a year. We take products that have never been internationalized and do everything from advice to hands-on keyboards and working side by side with teams.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Most of our product customers are actually mature globalization companies. Because I think it's just a lot easier for people who have been through the problem to
Yeah.
know, to understand what they need to do, that you need to
Yes.
scale this, and that it's not as simple as saying don't embed strings. So anyway, all right,
That's right.
well, hold on, there we go. All right. So time to talk a little bit of practical stuff. What are some of the common internationalization and localization challenges you faced with development teams?
It's a common theme across the enterprise. It's a common theme across development teams. That's really it's the knowledge. It's the knowledge of even starting from what is i18n, like that at that level, and L10, that when development teams that have never been in this part of the world, because this is a core component of what needs to be embedded in product teams to go global. When they started looking at i18n and L10, the first thing that they ask is, what is i18n? What is L10? So
Yeah, yeah.
and when we start explaining that, many things cascade from there. And different teams, depending on this, development teams in particular, really they're looking for guidance about, where do I start? What's the first step? And that's where usually the first step and the common challenge that all development teams face is embedded strings. That's it. That's the first step that we take with every development team. Do you have embedded strings here? And that's where we started as well, back in Workday and into it too, where we use Globalizer to do that. Really, we wanted to evaluate across the whole spectrum of different services and teams, what is the current state, and evaluate all those teams on, do they have embedded strings? Because you have embedded strings, obviously whoever's been in this field before, it's very difficult just to translate that string and to take any feature or UI, user interface, into other languages. So all the teams face that same challenge. And the second question is, okay, I can externalize it, but what library should I use? What should I use? And that's where we become at that point, my team becomes a consultant team. Like we provide consultancy to all those different teams, where we offer links and documentation, and what libraries or cut snippets or documentation they should be using, so that they can follow the proper path and pattern to go about all the i18 and L10 challenges. And one of the things that I would like to add, finally, is they usually, and this is a very common, is, what is the file format? Like, what's the proper file format? And always we respond back, well, depending on the programming language or the tech stack that you're using, is the file format that you want to support. And there are many different ones, right? There's so many out there. But as long as you can externalize your strings, put it in the right file format, then the next question becomes, how can I flow this through a system? And that's where we partner with development teams on, hey, as long as you externalize your strings in the right file format, following the i18n standards, and we can talk about that too, then it is our job as the core globalization engineering team to extract those resource files or those strings into the system so they can be translated. And that's how every team starts. And that's how the journey starts. And then they also ask questions about, hey, I have plurals, hey, how do I handle, different nouns, all the different peculiarities of every language. We have feminine, masculine, plural, the grammar, and that's where we start working with them, offering solutions and libraries that they can start using, like AI file message format, ICU message format, or CLDR for all the internet needs, etc. So that's the common challenge. It's knowledge, it's understanding what this is about, and where do I start? How do I start with this? And what's the first point? How should I go about this first? And third is give them a picture, a snapshot, or where they are, how does your product looks like, using, and we use Globalizer for that, and to show them, here are all the issues that you have, and this is where we can help you to solve all these issues with our guidance.
Right. We didn't even get into locale sensitive methods, but that's another day. All right. You kind of answered most of this question. But let's just focus on the last part. What were the impacts?
Oh, it depends on what we mean by impact. So the team, uh, um,
Did they
they
get better?
can yeah, they absolutely they did get better. I think the impact is this one, and there could be different impacts depending on um, which teams you are dealing with, because different teams, as you mentioned, Adam, not only across the enterprise, different companies, but also internally, different development teams are in at a different level in the maturity level. You know, you're like some teams are way ahead. They know about this, and
Mhm.
and some other teams are just starting on this journey. So depending on where they are is the impact that you have. So so those are the two extremes. You have very well oiled teams who have dealt with these issues before, and then you have teams that have never dealt with this before, and the impact is different. And let me talk about those two on the spectrum. Those two on the maturity side and mature side, where teams know what they're doing, they have translations already going and all that. What we offer to them is speed, because they can go. Oh, I didn't know that we can go faster. I didn't know that we can use machine translations to test this quickly. I didn't know that we can you know, plug in different branches so that the way I can translate different strings for different things, etc. So we offer them a platform capability so that they can scale. You know,
Mhm.
they can scale. And on the other side of the spectrum, where teams are just starting on this journey, really the impact is getting them to a place where they understand that this is something they can learn and that they can use on the day-to-day programming habits, and the impact is knowledge on that front. They know about this, they can use it, they know how to go about i18n. And the other spectrum is they can scale. They can scale, they can try new things, different things quickly. And so those are the two different kind of impacts I would mention on the spectrum. And then you have different teams on different journeys with different type of i18n issues, of course. Right. So
Very
yes.
good. Very good. That was a great answer. All right. Uh, so you had at work when you were at Workday, you had a multi-year plan for i18n deployment.
Yes.
Obviously, you don't know what's happening in the future at this point because you've left,
All
but
right, of course.
talk about how things, were and
Yes.
how they were going.
Thank you, Adam. Yes. So a 19N program usually, uh, what I've done, and that has worked for me very well in the past.
Mhm,
And as you mentioned, at Workday, and I will mention where, when I left Workday, where that program was at that point in time.
mhm,
But in any 19N program, from my experience, there is three phases, multi-year three phases. The first phase might take maybe 1 to 2 years, depending on the scope and how bad things are. um, and that first year, we call it informative year. It's where that's the key part where that's why we brought globalizer right away at Word and at e2 as well, because we wanted to generate data, and so we can drive with data. So the first year is all about recognizing the field, understanding where we are, and try to collect data from all over the different development teams to understand where they are, how bad or good things are, and that's might take 1 to 2 years. And during that phase, we approach each individual team with our findings. Hey, we found this. Your thinking, it's a key strategic goal of the company to go global. You might want to start making this part of your roadmap. And we will also offer guidance as well, as I mentioned, where to go about things depending on where they are in the journey. But also, we take that data and transform that data into, we were taking into a different level of abstraction because it's all numbers and issues, right? But we will take that data and show it to directors and VPs who will really understand what the problem really is. And we will help them to understand the risk of doing or not doing things for the future and for the current state of how things are. So 1 to 2 years informative. Then we have the second phase. The second phase is what I call non-restrictive. What do I mean by that? So you bring all your knowledge, you bring all the different things that you have discovered in phase one. Let's say took you 2 years to get there. Now everybody understands the problem, right? Everybody knows about your problem, how big it is, and now it's time to do something about it. And usually, and I'm gonna use an analogy. When you go bike and you fall down, I know that and you like to bike a lot. And so please excuse me if I'm not using the right terms here. When you go
Oh,
biking
good.
and you fall down and you scratch your knees, the first thing that and you start bleeding. So basically, phase one, it's all about how bad the bleeding is. That's what it is. That's the first thing that you do. You know, you look at the bleeding. Oh my God, this is bad because it's costing the company money, time, effort, and do we have the experience and the risk? Okay. Second phase is like, let's put a band-aid and stop the bleeding. That's what it is. Like, let's stop the bleeding. Phase two is stop the bleeding. So what do I mean by that on the i18n side is that's where you want to avoid having more i18n issues going into your source code, you know, and that's where we start doing i18n checks on pull request. That's what we start doing. And so in every pull request on new source code, we start checking for i18n issues. So we stop the bleeding there. No more i18n issues. You cannot merge your pull request until you fix your i18n issues that you have introduced in this particular feature. That's where what I mean by stop the bleeding. And at the same time, in phase two, you start fixing all the issues that we found in phase one. And that second phase, that non-restrictive phase, and you will see what I'm calling it non-restrictive in a minute, could take 2 to 3 years to implement. It may be sooner, depending on where you are, right? And the scope, and like I said, we'll also use Globalizer for that as well, by the way. And finally, as I see the sun coming on, finally, we have the restrictive phase. The restricted phase is when you are mature on your i18n journey. And that means, let's go back to the analogy here. That means that you're biking, next time that you're biking on that path, you're going to use knees protector, something, you know, like, hey, you want to put in something on your knees so that next time you fall down, nothing will happen. So that's the restricted phase. What it means is that I'm sorry. What it means is that you will make your i18n checks part of your build system, release system, so that nothing goes out to the market until they pass a threshold or they pass an evaluation of whatever that is. You have this number of issues. You cannot go out and deliver this to the customer. You cannot go out to prod. So you need to fix this number of issues before, or we're gonna break your build. That's a restricted phase. And so at back at work, going back to Workday, we were working in phase two.
So I just want to mention that's fabulous description of the phases. Not every company has the luxury of that kind. Well, nor do they need to do it at that scale of that long a cycle. I will just mention, often in these webinars, there are people who aren't familiar with some programming terms. Think of a pull request as like you've saved your work and now you're submitting it to be incorporated into the product, right? And so there's there's a gateway when you do that. It generally goes under code scanning for things like security. I18n with Globalizer is going to look at that. And these reports show up and they go with the pull request and you review those. And, if you're a developer, you really don't want any red X's on your report. It's a point of pride, actually. So you're looking
Yes.
for your code to be of good quality, it's secure, and whatever other requirements are being policed at that point, either automatically, like in Globalizer's case, or through code review of somebody else looking at your code. So it's a really important gateway. Even before that, there's the possibility of looking at issues as people are writing the code. So in their IDE or development environment, that's another place. So there are a lot of these windows that are a lot more effective than after localization, or if you're somewhat more proactive, like after pseudo localization.
Yeah.
There are really good windows to do that. The time to do that is up front. If you've got a legacy
Yes.
product, now you were talking about like phase one, there's the discovery. Now, a
Yes.
pull request is generally ongoing development. It's very hard to get a team to go back and say, hey, there's this, concatenation and it's in your application, and we want you to stop what you're doing on your current sprint and go back and fix that. That is the challenge. I won't go into it. That is a whole nother question of
It
how
is.
to teams to do
Yes.
that. But that is a
Yes.
serious issue. All right.
Yes. It
Um,
is.
uh, I wanted to get a little bit into the nitty gritty of strings themselves.
Awesome.
And again, it's not always the strings. I lifted this code sample out of a JavaScript tutorial that I found online. And if you know localization, there's a pretty serious problem with this in that the translator will receive these strings like as source individually. They'll have no context about what they're wrapped around in. The word order is likely to be different. I have 6 red juicy apples. Okay. If you've now concatenated this with various variables here, the translator has like no idea what you're talking about, and nor is the descriptor and the noun and the pluralization, none of that is going to make sense. So
No.
I just thought this was more fun to show than a single hello world string. but um so that's the concatenations is probably the biggest complaint we hear. Like even if
Yes.
teams are externalizing strings, there's also like strings isn't just one thing. Like some organizations, the developer never originates a string unless it's like an error message that comes up. It's all done during UX UI design in Figma. So there's a lot of possibility for string interface. And I don't know that this is really a question here, but I just wanted to illustrate that the problem isn't just like, let's externalize strings. It's really,
Yes.
if you're doing things in Figma for your design first, how do the designers see that? I take it, at Workday and at Intuit, I know you were using lots of pseudo localization. That's something
We
that
were. Yes.
automatically in our localizer. It's always turned on. But you also mentioned early in the conversation machine translation. We like to
Yes.
advise our clients, don't just use pseudo localization. You can actually, there's a way in localizer so you can turn on Figma or anywhere actually, and you can say, what's going to be my worst scenario?
Yes. Absolutely. Go to the
Right?
edge case.
Right. And to be fair, you can say to the translator, hey, this is going to be a limited space, and particularly that's important on mobile. Um, for the translation, but these are just some of the things. And I'm going to go ahead to the next question. I mean, if you have any insight to add to that, but you know,
Yeah, I would like to add, Adam,
yeah,
that
yeah, sure,
the right way of doing things, and I guess you've seen different things, but what I've seen on my end is usually the developers who are creating the strings ultimately, because usually what happens, but those things are changing, right? With
right,
the
right, right,
integration to Figma, integration to the
right,
UI,
right.
to the UI design tools, it's helping now. But what's and we're going through that phase right now, but usually what happens is that during the UI design, they don't think about other languages, they don't connect to, localizer or to a translation management system, to test the UI in different languages, in sizes as well. So basically the developers end up creating the strings, and that's where things start to, crumble. So it's like, that's where there is a gap, and that gap it's now smaller, but there is still a gap between the UI design and development as well, and that's where we end up with these kind of situations as well. Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I will sneak out that on the whiteboard in Lingoport is how to persist from Figma design into developers, so developers can literally just plug that in, and the resource
Yes.
file is built for them. Um,
Yes.
that
and
that
and
we don't have that in the product yet, but it's
and that's where we call in the localization space a shift left approach. So
right.
you try to go left in your push as many things as possible to the left side of your process, so that you can catch those issues early in your process,
Mhm.
because the earlier the better, the earlier the cheaper, because whatever goes through at the end, even you find something in production,
Mhm.
that is costly, that is very costly, not only for the company but for the customer as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'll also just mention, like, a part of the Agile Manifesto, this goes all the way back to like 1998, uh, was like, you need visibility.
Yes.
Like the developer has to not just write their code, but they have to demonstrate their code. They have to demonstrate it's not done until they can demonstrate. So you have to
Yes.
demonstrate all your requirements. So this is why, if we're talking about agile localization and we're not seeing localization issues until after localization,
Hmm.
um, as you say, you need to shift left, or I'm thinking for the audience, I have to move to the right. So the idea of upstream, left is being upstream, and we're assuming
Yes.
we're not assuming a bidirectional language here,
Oh, that's a
all right.
different. Yes.
We're making assumptions. All right,
When you
all
are
right.
bi-directional, you already externalize, speak some many 18 you know. You know what I
Right, right, right. Okay. All right. So here's where I put you to task a little bit. You
Yes.
bought Globalizer, you didn't buy Localizer, which would have done most of what you wanted to do, but it was a few years ago. But all right. So I'll give you a little bit of that. But you developed your own system, which most organizations are not in a position to do. But you have a lot of horsepower in your group,
We did.
really a lot. So kudos to being able to get the budget to build a team like that. That's
Yes.
a special
That
thing.
was pretty good. Yeah.
All right. You developed your own system to automate the transfer of strings from repository to the TMS. Why build instead of buy?
Um, I would like to take a step back. I've been on both sides of the equation, meaning
Mhm,
or I've been on both ends of the spectrum. I'm
mhm.
being on the side where there is only two developers,
Uh-huh. Right, right,
and
right.
and I've been on the side where there is we have a very good engineering muscle.
Mhm,
And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is, when you are thinking about building something or buying something, you have to think about it in terms of different aspects, and you have to consider different factors: budget, time, and expertise.
mhm,
So do you have the budget? Do you have the time? Do you have the expertise? those from my own experience should help you to try whether you're going to build something or you're going to buy something. Let's talk about particularly back at Workday, where we did a lot of the building, by the way. And the reason we did that is because I was part of the team, and we had experience in the team to know what needed to be done. And I created with the development team a technical roadmap of what are the things that we need to have in place to support the i18n and globalization journey at Workday. And we created that roadmap because I had the experience, I knew what needed to happen, and we have the engineering muscle as well, of course. And so those were the two main reasons why we decided to build. Now, if you ask me, I'm a small organization. I don't have the engineering power. That's where you start thinking about buying. But let's take a. Let me tell you, when you buy, you're not only buying software or services. You're also getting a partner. You're getting a partner with whoever is offering you that solution. And that's why that partner is going to bring all the expertise that you need to get your technical roadmap off the ground. And so we did a combination when we were building our system. I had all the experience. I taught all the engineers about what is localization, translations, all of that. I trained them, and we partnered with Lingoport. Let me be very transparent here. Right out of the gate, we partnered with Lingoport because we knew we were going to need the systems that helps us to analyze the source code and evaluate our internet readiness. That's where everything starts. And we were looking into localizer as well, and it's localizer, right, Adam? Because I remember we were talking about this in previous chats, and we look at the complexity of our systems. That's a hidden factor to consider as well. We look at the complexity of our systems back at Workday, and the complexity involved into externalizing strings and getting strings out of those systems was pretty complex. And we had to have in-house knowledge for us to be able to take that system and bring it up to this era of, let's translate that system. Let's bring it to the i18n best practices era. And we needed a lot of in-house that nobody in the industry, no one can provide to us, honestly. And that's a complexity factor that I didn't talk about as the 3 factors, but that's a 4 factor. How do you have in-house knowledge? It's really necessary, because if it's not, then you can buy, and then you can plug it. And of course, when you buy, you have to adopt, you have to adjust, and then you're getting a partner as well when you buy something, right? And so that's one of the main reasons why we built back at Workday. We had the needed muscle, and I had the experience as well as with with the people I was working with back there. We had all the experience needed to build those systems as well.
All right. I'm kind of challenging you here.
Yes, please.
All right. Strings come in from development teams, and if your source isn't clean, your translation's not going to be clean. Were you able to inspect and, if necessary, edit source?
So when we started the journey on both Intuit and Workday, I'll refer to both. Yeah. We weren't able to inspect and edit strings at the source. And for that, we were thinking about creating our very own string management system. And
Right.
and I know you guys have a stream management system as well, but in our case, due to the complexity of the systems that we have to deal with, we had to have a stream management system that was very well tightly integrated to those systems as well, and that's why we were building them. We were thinking on building our own, but let me explain. We weren't able to inspect and edit strings at their source. We
Mhm.
but we already have on a technical roadmap a way of doing that, and that was through
Mhm.
stream management, which really what it does. And Adam, I'm sure you can expand on this, but really what it does, based on my experience that I built a stream management system in the past already, you can collect all the strings across the enterprise, put it in one single repository where they can be inspected and they can be edited if needed, and you can apply different quality checks at the source as well, so that no garbage goes through the translation process. And the stream management system also serves not also as a single repository, but it also serves as a delivery system as well, because it delivers back to all the different systems across the enterprise, so that you can also reuse strings that have been translated previously. And so all the universal strings being generated or created on the source and the target side in one single repository. And so yes, were we able? No, but it was part of a technical roadmap to do that.
Okay, very good. Well, to be fair, we only added that functionality this year. So.
There you go.
All right. Um, developers, they really want things quickly. Now we're talking not just machine or pseudo. What was the final turnaround time that you like to deliver
Yes.
completed translation?
So when you have the correct or the right translation management system, and I guess it depends on every company what their needs are, right? But in our particular case, we were able to manage different speeds for different SLAs, delivery SLAs, um, to to deliver those strings back to developers. So what it means is that we had to put in place a system that allows you to manage three things. And let me explain those three things. So we were able to go across the spectrum of those three things. One is scalability, speed, and quality. And so you want to build a system that allows you to scale, to translate a big amount of strings for many different languages, or just one language and one string. You want to build a system that enables you to go and apply all the quality checks that you want. But that means that's going to increase the speed at which you deliver that string back. And also, you want to enable a workflow that allows you to quickly deliver strings back to developers. And the expected turnaround usually it's every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, you should be fine. That less than that and more than that could affect or could have an impact in time and quality. So usually 2 weeks, it's a good amount of time to have a process where you receive your strings. Developers don't have to wait too long. That's based on my experience. That's a okay time to wait for strings to go back, and then you also have the quality checks being done during that time as well. And so though 2 weeks, it's based on my experience, is what it's a good amount of time to have the perfect turnaround for developers.
Okay, I will say in dealing with clients, we see some are down to even 3 days.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but you know, but I understand 2 weeks is something that you can do it. Your team could do at scale,
Yep.
and
Yep.
a lot depends on your localization partner. On a smaller basis, with some localization partners, not all. There's the issue of minimums, and batching the work.
Yes.
Like so, there are a
It's
lot of concerns that way.
we
Yeah.
can talk about this for hours,
Yes, we can.
really.
We
Yeah, we
can.
can, you know. And one of the things that I would like to add to this is if 2 weeks is too long, but at the same time, because it depends on where you have in-house translators, vendors, whatever. Like I said, it's
Right.
you blow this up, and we can talk about this for hours. But now with the new technology that's been developed and machine translation has been there out there for a while now, you know,
Uh-huh.
but now with LLMs too, now you can shrink the amount of time developers have to wait, making it a self-service capability at that point.
Yeah, the
Okay.
thing I talk about is used machines. You're ready. You know, I won't even say it's 3 days. It's more like seconds. You're ready, and
Seconds. Yeah.
but you need a mechanism for a second loop for the human to
Yes,
override. And
that's
there's
right.
more you can do with LLMs in that case that isn't even translation. But I'm not gonna. That's for next year to talk about.
That's good.
But all right. I'm going to go kind of fast over this because I want to make sure we have time for Q&A.
Sure.
This is something I just want an example. It doesn't get talked about enough, and that is visual context for the translator. For this to work, your TMS has to be able to support it, honestly.
Yes.
And you want to do this. I don't think you really want to do this with screenshots. I know some people do, but screenshots take up a lot of room.
Yeah.
They make for some heavy lifting. So one of the things we do is we literally have a rendering that we capture on a server automatically. Developer doesn't have to remember to do the screenshots in this case, for instance. They literally they run their unit test, and we because our products are actually in the repository, not just in the end files, but we can associate like here. You know, I'm sorry to everybody. I cut and paste this from a document. I really should have gotten the original, you know, image, and it's a little fuzzy. But here, this is a mock-up of a shopping cart, you know, but you see payment method here. And this is I believe it's Smartling actually. So in Smartling, you know, but there's plenty of TMSs that we support. You see the word payment method. So if a translator is going here, they click on this, they see it highlighted, they actually see the context. What does this mean for the whole QA process, you know, and that whole extra QA loop?
Yes. Visual context is very important. Absolutely. I mean, I had faced this issue before where, when you are in the QA phase, um, usually, that's where you catch many issues because during the translation phase, you didn't have the proper rendering or the proper visuals to support that. So,
Mhm.
um, what I in a proper mature continuous localization translation process, what you do, and I want to summarize this very quickly, is you want to have a QA process to focus only on the things that are important, that have priority for your customers, that are very that have a lot of traffic, and at the same time you deliver translation. So you have those two processes working in parallel. And part
Mhm.
of the QA process, definitely you have the luxury of having in context, visual in context way of um, um, checking for the toast translations. Great,
Mhm.
because screenshots, I tried screenshots before and it's a mess. It
Mhm.
takes forever to fix something because you don't know what it is. I see
Right,
this is
right.
wrong. Where can I find it? Right. So,
All right. This is a little bit of our future question, and I was tempted to write LLMs on here, but let's be broader than that, you know. And this is our
Mhm.
last question. We're going to QA, and I can tell we're going to run over because we've had too much fun here. Go ahead. I should shut up and let you answer this maybe quickly.
I can say, and this is, and I will summarize it like this. What we know today, the way that we understand, I think that we do our translations and we support i18n. I think many of the things, the services and products that we can get to help us with that journey, many of those things are gonna continue to evolve into become a service oriented. So let me give you an example. In a translation management system today, what you have is a UI, it's a way for humans to interact with the UI and all that. Those are going to evolve into into a service oriented, which what I mean by that is that we're gonna bring a lot of the human aspect of how we interact with those processes in-house, and all the different products that out there today, everything is going to become more like an integration. You're going to integrate into those systems, you're going to be using those systems, and you're going to get something back, and then it's going to become faster, and you're going to and machine translations and llms are going to be so good that you're going to need less and less review, but it's also going to help you to focus on what's important at the same time.
Mhm.
So that's not going away. The review process is not going away, but it's going to be, we're going to change. It's going to be more integration into, you're going to be service oriented capabilities
Mhm.
integrated to different companies and getting our translations or anything and done internally.
Yeah, I will say even right now, you know, like in Globalizer, um, you can actually bring an LLM into the process and
Awesome.
ask it questions like, you know, we have a pretty strong help system with instructions for the developer. So like, we don't just flag an issue and like, but you can actually say to the LLM, again, if you have security permissions to do so, you could say, hey, give me an example of how I should have written this, you know, stuff
Yes.
like that. That is really
Yes.
practical
Yes.
kind of stuff that's
No,
like, yeah,
and we're starting, and this is, I've been doing some, and I'm gonna go into details of what I've been building. Obviously, you know about this, Adam, but from the developer side, now the prompt for LLMs will become part of your programming,
right,
day-to-day programming now. So you're gonna
right,
actually, instead of calling an API, you're gonna be calling an LLM. That's where
right,
we're going. And
right.
so not only calling an LLM for getting data out, but like I said, for integrating to, hey, I have this date, give me the right date for how it's supposed to be formatted. And you're calling an LLM at that point. So
Right. Well,
it's,
that's literally what we have in Globalizer now. It's
there
an
you go.
option. It's an
Yeah,
option. And you know, we're kind of assuming that people using that will have their own private account of ChatGPT or
of
whatever,
course.
right?
Yeah.
But you know, it's probably the InfoSec groups are actually on full alert. Whoops. All right, so we've got to get to questions. We've used up all the time, really. There's a lot in the chat. Daniel, can you tell me if there's any questions in there?
Sure, we can start the first one. It says, our software biotech company was developed several years ago and released only in English, without internationalization or localization in mind. Now, for some regulatory requirements of some countries, we need to localize our software into several languages. What would you recommend to the localization team to streamline and organize the process smoothly?
Adam, you want to take that one? Should I?
They actually asked, they want to hear your perspective. So you
Okay,
know,
awesome.
I can't help wanting to answer that, but I'm going to bite my tongue and let you go first.
Awesome. So the first step that you want to take is to pseudo localize everything, and pseudo localize everything. That's the first step. And if you cannot zero localize, that's your first step that you need to take, which is you need to externalize every single string that is embedded in the product. And the first, so you can in zero localize it. For that, I will right away start getting globalizer if you can. Get globalizer, it will analyze your source code and tell you right away what issues you need to fix within days or within hours right away. So it depends on your tech stack. That's the first step. And then once you know where issues are or what hasn't been externalized, because you need to pseudo localize it so that you understand how your product works and supports different characters across different locales. Um, you also, once you know what the issues are, where they are, the second step, and I will stop there, the second step is to prioritize where you want to start fixing. That's the second step. Where do you want you want to focus on the high traffic areas that your customers use. Aramis, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I'm going to go even upstream of that. First of all, I want to emphasize, maybe this is already, very apparent for the person asking the question, but really the very first thing is to establish your business case clearly. i18n is expensive. I really have no way around that. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you money and focus. Often there's, there's the fear. It doesn't have to be this way, but there's the fear of I'm going to have either my roadmap of new features I'm supposed to do, or it's going to be all hands on for this product team, all hands up on i18n, particularly because it's, in this case, it's never been done before. So we're not dealing with triaging bugs. We're dealing that everything is embedded. So if you run a pseudo localization, it's almost a little too early to do that. So establishing the business case that you can clearly communicate to your organization is like literally job number one. The second thing is that though you mentioned like something we called guidelines earlier, that is looking at what the software does. I mean, you know that the tech stack, what are the guidelines for how we're going to handle this thing? Like sort of get your arms around it. How are we going to go forward? How do we want developers to do things? Because new feature development should not have to sit on their hands and wait for i18n. You really want both processes going on in parallel. I appreciate you said globalizer. That's absolutely a part of it. Get your metrics in place. What's going to be needed to be fixed? There's often some amount of phase planning for an i18n effort that starts from nothing. Again, I'm not talking necessarily like you've got some i18n bugs. I'm talking you developed it for English as it is in the as in the question. So you've got phases, you've got target markets that are going to determine your phases. You might have business requirements like somebody sold something and now you have to deliver it in, I've had this happen, you have to deliver it in 3 months in this language. You might have to make trade-offs. 3 months is an unreasonably short amount of time to deliver a product in another language if you've never done i18n and it's a complex application. So you sometimes have to make trade-offs like, okay, we're going to have this functionality work, and then we're going to, kind of roll this out. So there's really a lot of variables to that question. It's something that we always help our customers to. We get to all those issues very early on, and all that. If you're going to local world, and this person has actually listed themselves as anonymously asking the question. But if you're going to local world, the very first section is one of our customers, CNH. They make Case New Holland, they make all kinds of farming equipment. They're going to talk about how they solve some of this, or that they're working on it. They haven't solved it yet, but they're working on it. Some of these very same problems. And you'd be like, you shouldn't be embarrassed, because you'd be amazed. We have a new customer, and they are very large, who literally forked their code, like, and delivered it in other languages with everything still embedded. I haven't seen that since the 90s, but it does happen.
Yes, happened. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a really
Yeah.
bad idea. So anyway, there's a lot of ways to solve this, but really, that's the order: business case, build a plan, guidelines, code scans, release plan based on requirements, and then
Yep.
some way to manage new development with cleaning up the old. I'll stand on my soapbox. We do that a lot. We worked as a hybrid team with the developers, where a team of our group is actually hands-on keyboard refactoring code, usually in concert with the developers team. So it's
Yep.
not just like throw it over the wall. So, okay.
Yes.
Are there other questions, Daniel, on LinkedIn Live? Also, oh, the second question just came in. Nope, just a thank you.
We have a
Any-
second question here on the chat of Zoom. Edie asks, how do you place QA measures to ensure internationalization is in fact being completed in the first two stages of internationalization maturity journey?
Lucy, I'll let you take that first too.
Yeah, for sure. So if QA, it has to be, I think in the first phase, it's informative only, and you're only starting from a place where you don't have anything in place, not even QA, in phase one. And but what the way that you will approach this is that you want to start establishing requirements for QA, based on the findings that you discover, the data that you have is the level of effort that you will place into a QA program, um, because you need to know what we're dealing with first. In phase two, that's where you can start bringing in some automation in QA, where, like I mentioned, you start checking for i18n issues on pull requests first, but at the same time, you can automate, and I will go a little bit more into details. You can build a platform where you can automate going through every page and do some i18n checks automatically. But that during phase two is when you start building that QA platform. And so, but you can start doing some manual QA for checking for i18n issues. The way that you do that, you might be wondering where can I focus on, because there's so many pages, there's so many different areas in your product. Maybe then you start using data to drive those decisions, like high traffic features of your product is what you want to focus on. And then phase three, at that point, you have your fully automated QA platform, and that's where you start using it more consistently, more often, and you start making decisions based on on those findings as well. So phase one, you really don't have QA. You create the requirements for a QA platform or program, and then phase two, you start building and applying some QA checks at that point.
So I'll just add to that. There's different QA gates. There's the coding QA gate, and of course the localization deliverable QA gate. For the first, as Lucio's mentioned, one of the best things is to go as left as you can, or early in the development process as possible. The globalizer will do that for you really nicely. It can go right from as the developer is writing code during pull requests and the like. The second mechanism is like in localizer, it will always, like pseudo localization is always on, and it's highly configurable, but it's actually very cool. So if you have that always working, the return is fairly immediate for the developer. So usually we pseudo localize like to the Esperanto locale, and we have some clients with literally over 100 locales that they're supporting, and so we've never seen somebody do it to Esperanto. So by default, we pseudo localize, and the developer would switch to an Esperanto locale, and they would see it, and they again, it's the agile principle. Can the developer unit test and actually see what that screen they've been working on looks like? Now, the problem with pseudo localization when you're doing it in mass is that it shows an issue visually if it's involved in a string and a screen that you happen to be on. It doesn't show you where that is, and it's not always intuitive, like, oh, I'm in this part of the application, it's going to be in this part of the code base. And that's why analyzing the code at the code base level is important, because the fix is just a whole lot easier. If you are finding it an issue that relates to how the code was developed, not just like the wrong translation, and you create a Jira ticket for it, we've seen that the Jira ticket just like goes there to die.
Stays there forever. Yeah.
It's 3 years since this bug has been entered, and the reason for that is developers just move on to the next thing. So as Lucio has said, having some kind of a clear QA practice, and for a lot of i18n issues, your QA team can really be your friend. Like, hey, did this cut off? Did this string get cut off? And this, like if you teach them about what to look at, this is what a date format looks like.
Yeah,
this
right.
is what a number format looks like. Your QA team can really be your friends in this regard. So
Correct. Yep.
okay. Let's see. Anything else, Daniel, on LinkedIn Live, not just on Zoom?
Awesome.
We are done. No questions
Hey,
on LinkedIn.
we're going to wrap it up. We ran over. Thanks a lot of you stayed with us. Really appreciate it. You don't have to do anything to get the recording. You'll just get that. So don't worry about that. You don't have to write us for it. And thank you for joining us. Lucio, always a pleasure. This was fun.
Thank you so much.
Together. And
thank you so much.
You take care.
It was a pleasure for me.
Daniel, thanks for facilitating. All right.
Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure.
See you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, you guys. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.